Hello, you're here with the AntiFans.
And this is Fantasy Footnotes.
Today we're talking about how the hire of Hue Jackson is going to impact the fantasy value of Cleveland Browns heading into 2016.
So best place to start with that is what Hue Jackson's done in the past, to see what he brings to Cleveland. He was in Ohio recently, hanging out with the Cincinnati Bengals. He really helped Andy Dalton become what he was last year before he went down with the kind of like late season injuries. He was like a top 5 quarterback, basically. Tyler Eifert finally emerged as a huge piece. The running game was pretty successful as always, kind of a split. And AJ Green, say what you will, might not be a top 5 option, but definitely a really reliable high-end receiver.
1,000 yards every year for AJ Green. If you go back farther with Hugh, he was the offensive coordinator and then the head coach of the Raiders in 2010, 2011. Both years they went 8-8, the most successful years in Raiders' recent history. Hue Jackson always got a good run game. Darren McFadden had his best year under Hugh. Jeremy Hill and Giovanni Bernard both had good years there the last few years. Does quite a bit with the quarterback position. He mentioned Andy Dalton. Jason Campbell even had good years under Hue Jackson. Guy's a good offensive mind. Could bring a lot to the Browns, but do they have the talent? Most important position, quarterback. What do they have there?
I don't think they got the talent. They got RG3. They got a Josh McCown there. A little bit of a rookie sighting with Kessler and Austin Davis.
So who's going to be the starter week 1?
If you watch ESPN, you might think RG3. Cooler heads prevail might suggest Josh McCown.
They invested in RG3. They brought him in to be the starter. I don't know if he's the starter week 5. I think he's the starter week 1. Is there any chance, if you had to put a percentage probability, that RG3 recaptures some of that magic from his rookie season?
It's probably better than your initial thought would suggest. I think that he had a lot of issues with Washington's front office and or the coaching staff, really. I agree with you. Like, give him a chance to start early. I'd put it like less than a 33% chance that he recaptures any of that rookie magic, though.
All right, the most fantasy relevant player on the Browns last year, Gary Barnidge. What's the probability he is still a top 5 tight end in fantasy?
I mean, he's going to get drafted like a top 3 tight end. I like him to remain a top 10 tight end. I think that Hue Jackson's had a history of pretty nice tight end related activities in his arsenal. So what do you think?
I would give it a less than 10% chance that he's in the top 5. I don't think any of the quarterbacks are going to be good enough to produce much, and I don't think that Gary Barnidge is an elite talent in any way. Guy emerges out of nowhere at 30 years of age. I don't think it's sustainable. I would not be drafting him unless it's around tight end 8 or 9. All right, let's talk about running backs, the most important position in fantasy football. Who's going to be the starting running back this year for the Browns?
It's going to definitely be either Isaiah Crowell or Duke Johnson. Duke Johnson, heck of a receiver, coming into his second year. Hue Jackson has had good receiving running backs. One of them is definitely going to have value this year. It's going to be tough. Hopefully you get a clearer picture by the time draft time rolls around. What do you think?
I think neither one will produce like a starting running back. I think it's a timeshare. Crowell gets the majority of the yardage on the ground. Duke Johnson gets the majority of the receiving yards. I think Duke Johnson has an outside chance to be somewhat valuable in a PPR league. I think he's got real value. I think he probably ends up with 500, maybe a little bit more than that, receiving yards. But I don't think he gets much on the ground. Therefore, I don't think either guy is somebody you really want to invest heavily in terms of fantasy.
What were Giovanni Bernard's best receiving yard seasons?
His rookie year, he was just a pinch over 500 receiving yards. If you look at Darren McFadden's year in 2010 with Hue Jackson as the offensive coordinator, he was right around there as well. So, that's about where Hue Jackson's running backs end up in terms of receiving yards, is around 500 a year. So I think there's a good chance Duke Johnson hits that this year, especially with the lack of other receiving options, which segues into the next topic of conversation. Who's the best receiver on the Browns this year?
It probably doesn't matter. It probably is Duke Johnson or Gary Barnidge. But you're looking at Corey Coleman, the rook. I got some kind of like fringy, desperate bye week options for like real rough squads like Brian Hartline and Drew Hawkins. And as always, a little Terrell Pryor.
On the radar is cast off, end up in Cleveland. And with that, we invite you to please subscribe to the AntiFans here on YouTube. Leave your comments.
Yeah, any comments you want. Good, bad, we want to see them. Thank you.
Thanks.